Your Honor, may I present evidence that contextualizes the petitioner's relationship with my client and her daughter? My attorney, Paige Montgomery, stood with a manila folder in her hands. Across the aisle, my mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, playing the grieving grandmother. My father sat rigid, his jaw clenched, both of them confident this judge would give them what they wanted. What they didn't know is what was inside that folder. Ms. Donnelly, the judge said, looking directly at me. These people claim they've been denied access to your daughter. They say they have rights as grandparents. What do you say to that? I looked at my parents for the first time in 15 years. Really looked at them, Your Honor. I say they're 15 years too late. My mother's tissue froze mid-dab. Harper, don't do this, Mrs. Donnelly. You'll have your chance to speak, the judge said sharply. Then back to me, continue. They threw me out when I was 14 years old. 4 months pregnant. 3 garbage bags of clothes and $200. That was it. No phone. No house key. The door locked behind me, and I haven't heard from them since. Not a birthday card. Not a Christmas call. Nothing. Until 3 months ago when they showed up at my office demanding to meet Kennedy. That's not true. My father stood up. We tried to reach you. Sit down, Mr. Donnelly. The judge's voice could have frozen fire. Ms. Montgomery, present your evidence. Paige opened that folder, and I watched my parents' world begin to collapse. Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Harper Donnelly, and I'm 29 years old. Before I take you through this story, I want to thank each and every one of you who subscribed to this channel. Your support means everything to me, and I don't take it for granted. Let me say a quick prayer for you today. Wherever you are in the world, may you find strength in your weakest moments. May you recognize your worth even when others can't see it. May you have the courage to walk away from people who diminish your light, and may you build a life so beautiful that their rejection becomes irrelevant. May peace find you, may joy surprise you, and may you always remember that you are enough, exactly as you are. Amen. Now, let me tell you how I went from a homeless, pregnant 14-year-old to the woman who stood in that courtroom and watched her parents realize exactly what they'd lost. Before I show you how this all ended, hit that subscribe button because what happens next will leave you speechless. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I read every single one, and your stories keep me going. Let me take you back to where this all started. October 14th, 15 years ago. Jefferson Middle School bathroom. 2 pink lines. And a life that would never be the same. The pregnancy test shook in my hands. I was 13 years old, 2 months into 8th grade, standing in the girls' bathroom during lunch period. Around me, I could hear other girls laughing, talking about the homecoming dance, complaining about homework. I was staring at 2 pink lines that meant my childhood was over. The father was David Brooks, my boyfriend of 6 months. Sweet, gentle David who walked me home from school every day and split his sandwich with me when my lunch looked too sad. We were both so young, so stupid, so terrified that night in his basement when his parents were at his grandmother's funeral. We thought we were being careful. We thought one time wouldn't matter. We were wronged, I told David first. After school, behind the bleachers where we always met. I pulled the test from my backpack, my hands trembling so badly I almost dropped it. His face went white. Harper, is that? I'm pregnant. For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then tears started running down his face. Not angry tears. Scared tears. What are we going to do? His voice cracked. My parents, your parents, I don't know. I was crying too. David, I'm so scared. He pulled me into his arms, both of us shaking, both of us 14 and 15 years old with no idea how to handle this. "We'll figure it out," he whispered. "I promise." "We'll figure it out together." That promise lasted 3 days. David told his parents first. His mother, Ruth, called me that night. Her voice was gentle, kind, everything my own mother's wasn't. "Harper, honey," David told us. "Can you come over tomorrow after school? We need to talk, but not to yell. Just to talk. We'll figure this out together, okay?" For those 3 days, I had hope. Ruth drove me to a free clinic for a pregnancy test to confirm. She held my hand when the doctor said I was about 8 weeks along. She bought me prenatal vitamins and made me promise to take them every day. "You're going to need support," she said on the drive home. "From your family, from us, from everyone who loves you. This is hard, but you're not alone." I believed her. Then I told my parents. The kitchen smelled like my mother's lavender candles and the cookies she'd been baking for her church group. Patricia Donnelly's sanctuary, where everything was clean and perfect and exactly as it should be. I stood by the refrigerator, the pregnancy test in my jacket pocket, trying to find words that wouldn't make this worse. My father, Robert, sat at the table reading the newspaper. My mother was washing dishes, her back to me. Reagan, my 16-year-old sister, was upstairs on her phone. I could hear her laughing about something. "Mom. Dad. I need to tell you something." My father lowered his newspaper. My mother turned off the water but didn't turn around. "I'm pregnant." The dish my mother was holding slipped from her hands and shattered in the sink. The sound echoed through the kitchen like a gunshot. She turned around slowly. Her face had gone completely white, then red, then something uglier than rage. "What did you just say?" "I'm pregnant. I took a test. It's positive." "You're lying." My father's voice was deadly calm. "This is for attention. You've always been jealous of Reagan's popularity, and now you're making up stories." "I'm not lying." I pulled the test from my pocket, held it up with shaking hands. "I'm pregnant." My mother walked across the kitchen. For a second, I thought she was going to hug me. Instead, she snatched the test from my hands, stared at it, then threw it in the trash. "How could you do this to us?" Her voice was shaking. Not with concern. With disgust. "How could you be so stupid, Mom? I'm sorry." "Sorry?" She laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. "You're 13 years old, Harper. 13. Do you have any idea what this means? What people will say about us? Who did this to you?" My father was standing now, his face red. "What boy did this?" "David. David Brooks. He's that construction worker's kid?" My mother's voice went up an octave. "Oh, this is perfect. Just perfect. White trash all the way down. Mom, David's nice. His family is nice. They're trying to help." "Help?" My father grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in hard enough to leave bruises. "You're getting rid of it. Tomorrow. I'll make the appointment tonight." "No." The word came out smaller than I meant it to. "I don't want to do that." "You don't get to want anything." His grip tightened. "You're 13 years old. You don't make decisions. We do. And we're fixing this mistake before anyone finds out." "She's not a mistake." My voice was stronger now, even though I was crying. "The baby's not a mistake. I want to keep her." My mother's laugh was cruel. Keep her? Keep her? Harper, you can't even keep your room clean. You can't do your homework without help. You think you can raise a child? I'll try. David's family will help. They said, those people have nothing. My father shoved me backward. Not hard enough to hurt, but hard enough to make his point. What are they going to do? Share their food stamps? They're good people, they're trash. My mother's voice was ice. And so are you if you think we're going to let you ruin this family's reputation. Carol, get the phone book. My father was already moving toward the hallway. Find a clinic. We're taking care of this tomorrow. I'm not going. I planted my feet, even though I was shaking. You can't make me. We can't make you? My mother stepped closer. Her perfume, that expensive floral scent she always wore, made me want to vomit. You're a child living in our house. You'll do what we say. Then I'll run away. The slap came out of nowhere. My mother's hand connected with my face so hard my head snapped to the side. I tasted blood where my teeth cut my cheek. You ungrateful little, she caught herself, breathing hard. We've given you everything. Food, clothes, a roof over your head. And this is how you repay us? I touched my burning cheek. I didn't mean for this to happen. But it did happen. My father's voice had gone cold. Calculated. So here's what's going to happen. You have two choices. You get rid of it, or you get out. The words hung in the air between us. You don't mean that, I whispered. Try me. He crossed his arms. Abortion or the door. Choose to. I looked at my mother, hoping for something. Compassion. Understanding. Even just acknowledgement that I was her daughter, and I was terrified. She looked away. I choose the baby. For a moment, nobody moved. Then my father nodded once, sharp and final. Patricia, get some garbage bags. Pack her things. Robert, my mother's voice was uncertain now. She made her choice. He turned his back on me. She can live with it. Literally. My mother hesitated for only a second. Then she walked to the pantry and pulled out a box of black trash bags. Reagan appeared in the kitchen doorway, phone in hand. What's going on? Your sister is leaving, my mother said, shaking out a garbage bag. She's pregnant, and she's decided to keep it. So she's not our responsibility anymore. Reagan's eyes went wide. Then she smiled. Actually smiled. Oh my God. This is insane. She held up her phone. I'm texting everyone. Reagan, please. I reached for her, but she stepped back. Don't touch me. You're disgusting. She was already typing. Wait until everyone at school hears about this. My mother grabbed my arm. Come on. Let's get your things. She dragged me upstairs to my room. The room I'd had since I was 5 years old. Pink walls I'd begged for. Posters of bands I loved. The stuffed elephant my grandmother gave me before she died. My mother yanked open my drawers and started shoving clothes into the garbage bag. Not folding. Not organizing. Just cramming everything in like it was actual garbage. Mom, please don't call me that. She didn't look at me. You stopped being my daughter the moment you made this choice. I didn't choose to get pregnant, but you chose to keep it. She moved to my closet, pulling clothes off hangers. You chose this baby over your family. Over your future. Over everything we've built for you. I'm 14 years old. What future do I have anyway? She whirled on me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Pure, undiluted hatred. You had every future. College. A career. A good marriage. Everything Reagan will have. But you threw it away. She tied up one bag and grabbed another. For what? A baby you can't afford? A life of poverty? Is that what you want? I want to be a mother, he laughed again, that same cruel sound. You're a child yourself. While she packed, I looked around my room, trying to memorize it. The growth chart marks on my closet door. The water stain on the ceiling from when Reagan left her bathroom sink running. The window where I used to watch for my father to come home from work. All of it about to become memory. My mother found my journal. The one where I'd been writing about David, about the baby, about how scared I was, but also how maybe this could be okay. How maybe I could do this. She opened it and started reading aloud, her voice mocking, I think I'll be a good mom. I'll love this baby more than anything. I'll work hard and give her everything she needs. She threw the journal in the trash bag. Delusional. That's private, nothing's private in this house. She moved to my bookshelf, sweeping books into the bag. Not anymore. My father appeared in the doorway. How much longer? Almost done. My mother tied up the second bag. What about her phone? Keep it. She won't need it where she's going, Dad, please. I need my phone. How will you what? He stepped into my room. Call us? We don't want to hear from you. Call your friends? They won't want to be associated with you once they know what you did. He pulled my phone from my pocket. This belongs to me. I paid for it. He walked out with my phone. My only connection to David, to Ruth, to anyone who might help me. My mother filled a third bag with my shoes, my winter coat, random items from my desk. Then she stood up and looked around the room. That's everything. What about my stuffed animal? My grandmother's elephant sat on my bed, worn and loved. Can I at least? She picked it up and threw it in the regular trash can. You don't get to take memories with you. Something broke inside me then. Not dramatically. Just quietly, like a crack in ice that you don't notice until you fall through. My father came back with papers in his hand. Sign this. What is it? A statement that you're leaving of your own free will. That we didn't force you out. That you understand you're making this choice. I'm not signing. Then I'll tell the school you're a predator. His voice was calm. Reasonable. More terrifying than if he'd yelled. I'll tell them you seduced a 15-year-old boy. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. My hands shook as I took the pen. Through tears, I signed my name on a document that made my own erasure legal. Reagan stood in the hallway, filming on her phone. This is wild. Everyone's going to want to see this. Reagan, turn that off, my mother said, but there was no force behind it. My father picked up the 3 garbage bags. Let's go. They walked me downstairs like I was being escorted from a building. The smell of cookies still hung in the air. The lavender candles still burned on the counter. Everything looked exactly as it had 20 minutes ago, except my entire life had ended. At the front door, my mother pulled my house key from my backpack. You won't need this. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. She opened the door. Cold October air rushed in. You made your choice. Now live with it. My father tossed the garbage bags onto the front porch. They landed with a sad, crumpling sound. Wait, I turned back. Can I at least say goodbye to? The door slammed in my face. I heard the deadbolt slide home. Click. Final. I stood on that porch, 3 garbage bags at my feet, no phone, no money except the $200 they'd shoved in my pocket, pregnant and 14 and completely alone. Across the street, Mrs. Henderson stood at her window, watching. She saw everything. She saw me crying on that porch with my garbage bags. She saw my parents close the door on their pregnant child. She pulled her curtains closed up and down the street. Neighbors had watched. Some from windows, some from porches. Nobody came to help. Nobody asked if I was okay. Nobody offered me a place to stay. They just watched my humiliation like it was entertainment. I picked up the garbage bags and started walking. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stand on that porch anymore, staring at a door that would never open for me again. It was October 14th. The air was cold. Leaves crunched under my feet. Somewhere behind me, I heard Reagan laughing, and I kept walking. David's mother answered the door with flour on her hands. She'd been baking. The smell of bread made my stomach growl. I hadn't eaten since breakfast, and that felt like a lifetime ago. Harper? Ruth took one look at my face, my garbage bags, and understood. Oh, honey. Come inside. She pulled me into the apartment. It was small, crowded with furniture and family photos, warm in a way my house never was. David's father sat at the kitchen table with his brother. David was doing homework at the counter. He looked up when I walked in. Harper? What then? He saw the bags. No. They didn't, they threw her out. Ruth was already clearing space. Michael, help her with those bags. David's father stood up immediately. He was a big man, made bigger by years of construction work, but his hands were gentle as he took the bags from me. You're staying here. As long as you need. That's when I started crying. Really crying. Not the scared tears from before, but deep, broken sobs that came from somewhere I didn't know existed. Ruth held me while I fell apart. She didn't tell me it would be okay. She didn't make promises she couldn't keep. She just held me and let me break. You're safe now, she whispered. You're safe. For 6 weeks, that apartment was heaven. Ruth made sure I ate 3 meals a day. David's father drove me to prenatal appointments he paid for out of pocket. David's younger siblings, 2 brothers and a sister, made room for me without complaint. They treated me like family. But the apartment was built for 5 people, not 6. 2 bedrooms for 7 people meant someone was always on the couch. Money was tight. David's father's construction work was seasonal, and winter was coming. Still, they tried. God, they tried so hard. I went back to school. Alternative program for at-risk youth. The regular kids stared at me in the hallways, whispering. Reagan had made sure everyone knew. I was the pregnant 13-year-old. The cautionary tale. The girl who ruined her life. David tried to protect me at school. He walked me to every class, glared at anyone who stared too long, sat with me at lunch when everyone else avoided our table like we were contagious. Harper, we should tell your parents, he said one afternoon as we waited for Ruth to pick us up. About the baby. Maybe if they see you're okay, if they know we're trying, they don't care. But they're your parent. They stopped being my parents the day they locked that door. I watched cars pull up, parents collecting their kids, normal families doing normal things. They made their choice, David. I'm making mine. He squeezed my hand. Then we'll do this together. 3 weeks later, his father lost his construction job. The company he worked for went bankrupt, leaving 20 workers without paychecks right before Thanksgiving. I heard Michael on the phone with the unemployment office, his voice strained. I have 4 kids and my rent is due in 2 weeks. I need to know when benefits start. Ruth tried to hide how worried she was, but I saw her counting change from the jar on the counter. Saw her watering down the milk to make it last longer. Saw her give us bigger portions at dinner while eating almost nothing herself. One night, I heard them talking in their bedroom. The walls were thin. We can't keep doing this, Ruth. Michael's voice was defeated. I can't feed 7 people on unemployment. I can't even feed my own kids properly. What are we supposed to do? Throw her out like her parents did? No. God, no. But we need help. Real help. The kind we can't provide. The next morning, Ruth sat me down at the kitchen table. Her eyes were red from crying. Harper, honey, you know we love you. You know if we could, we'd keep you here until the baby comes, until you're ready to be on your own. My stomach dropped. You're sending me away. There's a shelter for homeless teens. It's clean, safe, they have people who can help you finish school. They have resources we just don't have. She grabbed my hands. I'm so sorry. If Michael had work, if we had more space, if things were different. It's okay. I was lying. It wasn't okay. But I understood. You did more for me than anyone else. You don't have to apologize. I'll drive you there myself. I'll check on you every week. You're not alone in this, Harper. Even if you're not under my roof, you're still in my heart. The shelter was in downtown Philadelphia, a converted office building that now housed 40 homeless teens. Most were runaways. Some were like me, thrown away. Ruth cried the entire drive there. So did I. Promise me you'll eat, she said as we pulled up. Promise me you'll take those vitamins. Promise me you'll go to your appointments. I promise. And Harper? She cupped my face in her hands. Your parents are wrong. You're going to be a wonderful mother. I've seen how you are with my kids, how patient you are, how kind. That baby is lucky to have you. I hugged her for a long time. When she finally drove away, I watched her car disappear and wondered if I'd ever feel that kind of unconditional love again. The shelter was survival, not comfort. Bunk beds with thin mattresses. Shared bathrooms with locks that didn't work. A common area with a TV that only played 3 channels. Rules posted everywhere, curfew at 9, lights out at 10, no visitors, no exceptions. My roommate was a girl named Shanice, 17, 6 months pregnant by a boyfriend who'd been arrested for drug dealing. First time in the system? She asked, watching me unpack my garbage bags. Yeah, you'll get used to it. Food's decent. Staff's okay. Just don't trust the other girls too much. People steal here when they're desperate. She was right. Within a week, someone took my winter coat. The next week, my only pair of jeans that still fit. I learned to sleep with my bag under my pillow, my shoes tied to my wrist. But I also learned resilience. The shelter had a program for finishing high school. I attended classes in the morning, just 5 other girls, 1 teacher, a classroom that smelled like bleach and instant coffee. Ms. Rodriguez, our teacher, was strict but fair. You're smart, Harper, she told me after I aced a math test. Really smart. You could go to college if you wanted. I'm about to be a teenage mother with no family and no money. College isn't exactly in the cards, not now. But someday. She handed me a pamphlet for community college. When you're ready. Keep this. I kept it. Kennedy was born on June 3rd. 3 weeks early, while I was alone in a county hospital, the contractions started at 2 in the morning. I woke up Shanice, who got the night supervisor, who called an ambulance. By the time I reached the hospital, I was dilated to 6 centimeters and absolutely terrified. I asked, there anyone we can call? The nurse was kind, but her pity made me want to scream. No. The baby's father? He doesn't know I'm in labor. He's at school. David was taking his final exams. I'd told him labor probably wouldn't start for another 3 weeks. I was wrong. Parents? Family? I don't have family. The nurse squeezed my hand. Then I'll stay with you. You're not doing this alone. She did. For 7 hours of labor, this stranger held my hand and told me I was doing great, I was strong, I could do this. Kennedy Harper Donnelly entered the world at 9:47 a.m., screaming her lungs out, 6 pounds 2 ounces of perfect fury. When they placed her on my chest, still covered in blood and vernix, I looked into her tiny, scrunched-up face and made a promise: you will never feel unwanted. Never feel like a burden. Never wonder if you're loved. I will work every day for the rest of my life to make sure you have everything I didn't. I promise. She stopped crying and opened her eyes. They were dark blue, unfocused. Searching for me, and just like that, I wasn't alone anymore. Ruth visited the next day with balloons and diapers and a stuffed elephant that looked exactly like the one my mother had thrown away. I've been saving this for you, she said, tears running down her face. For when the baby came, David came that weekend. He held Kennedy carefully, like she might break, his eyes wide with wonder and fear. She's so small. She's perfect, what happens now? He looked up at me. You can't raise her in that shelter. I don't have a choice. But I did have a choice. Every single day, I chose to keep fighting. The shelter let me stay for 3 more months. Then I aged out of their program and moved to public housing, a studio apartment in North Philly with cockroaches, thin walls, and neighbors who screamed at each other every night. The apartment was 200 square feet. The kitchenette had 2 burners that worked. The bathroom had brown water stains that never came out no matter how much I scrubbed. The windows overlooked a parking lot where drug deals happened at 3 a.m., but it was mine. Kennedy's and mine. I worked night shifts at a diner called Mama's Place. The owner, Gloria, was a heavy-set woman with kind eyes who looked the other way when I brought Kennedy to work. Put her playpen in the back, Gloria said. Long as she's not crying where customers can hear, we're good. So Kennedy slept in a playpen between boxes of napkins and industrial cans of tomato sauce while I served eggs and coffee to truckers and night shift workers. When she woke up hungry, I'd feed her in the storage room, then get back to work. I made $6 an hour plus tips. On good nights, I'd clear $60. On bad nights, $30. Every penny went to survival. Rent. Formula. Diapers. The electric bill. There was a Tuesday I remember clearly. Kennedy was 4 months old, and I had to choose, buy a package of diapers or buy food for myself. I chose diapers. I went to bed hungry that night, listening to Kennedy sleep, doing math in my head. 3 more shifts until payday. I could make it 3 days without eating much. I'd done it before. When Kennedy was 6 months old, she got an ear infection. No insurance, no money for a doctor. I took her to the emergency room and begged, please. She's been screaming for 2 days. Something's wrong. The ER doctor examined her while I held my breath, terrified they'd make me leave without treatment, more terrified they'd see how desperate I was and call social services. She needs antibiotics. The doctor wrote a prescription. Do you have insurance? No. The prescription will be about $40. I had $17 to my name. Payday was 4 days away. Can I pay in installments? The doctor really looked at me. 16 years old, wearing a diner uniform that smelled like grease, holding a screaming baby, he pulled out his wallet and handed me 3 20s. Pay it forward someday, I cried in that pharmacy parking lot. Kennedy finally quiet from the first dose of medicine, that doctor $60 in my pocket, completely overwhelmed by unexpected kindness. When Kennedy was 18 months old, a caseworker showed up at my apartment. We've received reports about your living conditions, she said, looking around my studio with barely concealed disgust. This isn't suitable for a child, it's all I can afford. Then perhaps you should consider other arrangements for your daughter. My blood went cold. What kind of arrangements? Foster care. Adoption. Letting her be with a family who can provide. Get out. Ms. Donnelly, get out of my home. You don't get to take her from me. Nobody gets to take her from me. She left. But the threat remained. I lived in fear for months that she'd come back with police, with papers, with the authority to rip Kennedy from my arms. She never did. But the fear never fully left either. If you've ever had to choose between impossible options, food or diapers, medicine or rent, keeping your child or keeping them safe, type survivor in the comments. Your story matters, and I read every single one. You are stronger than you know, and you are not alone in this fight. I got my GED when Kennedy was 2 years old. Top scores in the state. The testing center gave me a certificate and a handshake. No celebration, no family to call, just me and a piece of paper that meant I could move forward. Community college was next. I applied for every grant, every scholarship, every program that would give a teenage mother a chance. Most said no. One said yes. Temple University's community college program accepted me with a full financial aid package. Classes started in September. Kennedy would be 3. How are you going to manage school with a toddler? The admissions counselor asked. I'll bring her with me. That's not watch me, I did bring her. For 2 years of community college, Kennedy sat in the back of lecture halls with coloring books and quiet toys. My professors saw me taking notes with one hand while keeping Kennedy entertained with the other. Some complained. Most didn't. Professor James, my accounting teacher, became an unexpected ally. You're good with numbers, he said after I aced his midterm. Really good. Have you thought about majoring in accounting? I haven't thought beyond getting through this semester. Think bigger. You have talent, Harper. Real talent. He wrote something on a piece of paper and handed it to me. That's my number. When you're ready to transfer to a 4-year school, call me. I have connections. I kept that number. 2 years later, I used it. Transfer to Temple University's main campus came with a full scholarship. I was 20 years old, Kennedy was 5, and we were moving up in the world, slightly. The studio apartment was still roach-infested, but now we could afford food every day. I studied accounting because numbers made sense. Numbers didn't lie, didn't manipulate, didn't abandon you when you needed them most. Numbers were definite, provable, safe. My father was an accountant. The irony wasn't lost on me. But I was better at it than he ever was. I understood how people hid money, how they created false trails, how they made assets disappear. Because I understood desperation. I understood what it was like to be invisible. That understanding made me exceptional. By my senior year, I was recruited by 3 firms. I chose Bennett and Associates, a mid-tier accounting firm in downtown Philadelphia, because they offered the best salary and benefits package. $45,000 a year. Health insurance. Kennedy could finally see a doctor regularly. Ms. Donnelly, your specialty will be forensic accounting, my boss said on my first day. Finding hidden assets, following money trails, uncovering fraud. Think you can handle it? Absolutely. I was 23 years old and hungry for success the way only someone who's had nothing can be hungry. My first major case involved a divorce where the husband claimed poverty while hiding $3 million in offshore accounts. It took me 6 weeks to find every penny. How did you know where to look? My boss asked, impressed. I thought like someone with secrets. Everyone leaves breadcrumbs. You just have to know what to look for. That case got me noticed. More cases followed. Bigger cases. Embezzlement. Tax fraud. Corporate theft. I found money that people swore didn't exist. At 25, I made junior partner. At 27, I was recruited by Bennett and Associates' biggest competitor Morrison & Klein for twice my salary. At 28, I made full partner at Morrison & Klein. The youngest in the firm's history. My salary jumped to $340,000 a year, plus bonuses that sometimes matched that. I bought a house. 3 bedrooms in a good school district. Kennedy, now 13, had her own room painted purple, her favorite color. She had a desk for homework, a bookshelf full of books, a closet full of clothes we'd picked out together. New clothes, not hand-me-downs. Mom, is this really ours? She stood in her room, eyes wide. Really ours. Nobody can take this from us. Kennedy started private school that fall. Westwood Academy, one of the best in Pennsylvania. I'd secured her a scholarship through connections I'd built, calling in favors from clients who owed me. She joined the debate team. Took piano lessons. Made friends who invited her to birthday parties and houses with pools and au pairs, everything I never had, she got, but I kept our life private. No social media presence. No public celebration of my success. After years of being invisible, I'd learned the safety of staying hidden in plain sight. My parents didn't know where I lived. Didn't know what I'd become. Didn't know Kennedy existed beyond that pregnancy test 15 years ago. I preferred it that way. There were moments when I'd catch my reflection in my office window, expensive suit, leather briefcase, commanding view of the city, and barely recognize myself. The girl who'd stood on her parents' porch with garbage bags seemed like a different person entirely. But she wasn't. She was still inside me, driving every decision, every success, every choice to never be vulnerable again. My colleagues knew nothing about my past. To them, I was Harper Donnelly, forensic accountant, partner, quiet but brilliant, single mother who didn't discuss her personal life. They didn't know about the shelter. The diner. The public housing. The nights Kennedy and I ate ramen 3 times in a row because it was all we could afford. They didn't need to know. What they did know, I was the best at what I did. Harper, you have a gift for this work, my senior partner said after I closed a particularly complicated case. Most forensic accountants follow the obvious trails. You see patterns nobody else sees. How do you do it? I understand how people think when they're desperate to hide something. I understand survival. I was 23 years old and hungry for success the way only someone who's had nothing can be hungry. My first major case involved a divorce where the husband claimed poverty while hiding $3 million in offshore accounts. It took me 6 weeks to find every penny. How did you know where to look? My boss asked, impressed. I thought like someone with secrets. Everyone leaves breadcrumbs. You just have to know what to look for. That case got me noticed. More cases followed. Bigger cases. Embezzlement. Tax fraud. Corporate theft. I found money that people swore didn't exist. At 25, I made junior partner. At 27, I was recruited by Bennett and Associates' biggest competitor Morrison & Klein for twice my salary. At 28, I made full partner at Morrison & Klein, the youngest in the firm's history. My salary jumped to $340,000 a year, plus bonuses that sometimes matched that. I bought a house. 3 bedrooms in a good school district. Kennedy, now 13, had her own room painted purple, her favorite color. She had a desk for homework, a bookshelf full of books, a closet full of clothes we'd picked out together. New clothes, not hand-me-downs. Mom, is this really ours? She stood in her room, eyes wide. Really ours. Nobody can take this from us. Kennedy started private school that fall. Westwood Academy, one of the best in Pennsylvania. I'd secured her a scholarship through connections I'd built, calling in favors from clients who owed me. She joined the debate team. Took piano lessons. Made friends who invited her to birthday parties and houses with pools and au pairs. Everything I never had, she got, but I kept our life private. No social media presence. No public celebration of my success. After years of being invisible, I'd learned the safety of staying hidden in plain sight. My parents didn't know where I lived. Didn't know what I'd become. Didn't know Kennedy existed beyond that pregnancy test 15 years ago. I preferred it that way. There were moments when I'd catch my reflection in my office window, expensive suit, leather briefcase, commanding view of the city, and barely recognize myself. The girl who'd stood on her parents' porch with garbage bags seemed like a different person entirely. But she wasn't. She was still inside me, driving every decision, every success, every choice to never be vulnerable again. My colleagues knew nothing about my past. To them, I was Harper Donnelly, forensic accountant, partner, quiet but brilliant, single mother who didn't discuss her personal life. They didn't know about the shelter, the diner, the public housing, the nights Kennedy and I ate ramen 3 times in a row because it was all we could afford. They didn't need to know. What they did know, I was the best at what I did. Harper, you have a gift for this work, my senior partner said after I closed a particularly complicated case. Most forensic accountants follow the obvious trails. You see patterns nobody else sees. How do you do it? I understand how people think when they're desperate to hide something. I understand survival. They'd come to my territory, my kingdom. Good. I walked to the lobby. Through the glass doors, I saw them. Robert and Patricia Donnelly. Older. Smaller. Diminished by time in a way that made them seem almost sad. My father's hair had gone completely gray. My mother had gained weight, her face drawn and tired. Both of them looked uncomfortable in my sleek, modern office lobby with its contemporary art and polished marble floors. They didn't belong here. I opened the door. Mother. Father. My mother turned, her eyes widening as she took in my appearance. Designer suit, expensive heels, the confidence of someone who commands rooms. Harper. Her voice trembled. You look so different. 15 years will do that. I kept my tone neutral, professional. What are you doing here? We've been looking for you, my father said. He tried to smile, but it came out strained. We wanted to see you. For 15 years? Silence. How did you find me? I asked. Your name came up in a business journal, my father admitted. An article about successful female executives in Philadelphia. We saw your photo, your firm's name. So they'd been looking for success, not for me. Found me only because I'd achieved something worth noticing. What do you want? Can we talk in private? My mother glanced around at my curious coworkers watching through glass walls. My office. I led them back, aware of every eye following us. My assistant, Jennifer, gave me a questioning look. I nodded slightly. She'd stay alert. In my office, my parents stood awkwardly, taking in the evidence of everything I'd become without them. The view. The furniture. The framed certifications on the wall. The photo of Kennedy on my desk, 13 years old, beautiful, confident, everything I'd fought to give her. My father moved toward the photo. Is that? Don't touch that. My voice was sharp enough to stop him mid-reach. He pulled his hand back. She's beautiful. Her name is Kennedy. She's 14 now. And you don't get to comment on her. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Real or performed, I couldn't tell. Harper, we're so sorry. We were young, scared. You were 38 and 43 when you threw me out. You weren't young. We didn't know how to handle the situation being your pregnant teenage daughter. I sat behind my desk, putting physical distance between us. Say what you're really here for. My father cleared his throat. We made mistakes. We thought we were doing what was best, by throwing me away like garbage. That's not fair, fair? I leaned forward. You want to talk about fair? I was 14 years old, 4 months pregnant, and you put me on the street with trash bags. Where was fair then? My mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue she'd pulled from her purse. The same practice gesture I'd seen her use at church when someone shared a sad story. We thought you were doing what was best. You were so young, we didn't think you could handle what? Being a mother? You were right. I was terrified every single day. But I did it anyway because I loved my daughter more than I feared failure. We want to meet her, my father said. Our granddaughter. We want to be a family again. The word family hit me like a physical blow. They wanted to meet Kennedy. The child whose existence had made me disposable to them. The daughter they'd forced me to raise alone in shelters and roach-infested apartments while they enjoyed their comfortable life. Get out. Harper, please, you don't get to do this. I stood, my hands flat on the desk to keep them from shaking. You don't get to show up after 15 years and demand access to my daughter. She's our grandchild. My mother's voice took on that entitled edge I remembered from childhood. We have rights, there it was. Not we miss you. Not we want to apologize. Not even we're sorry. Rights. You can't keep her from us forever, my father said, and there was an edge in his voice now. A threat. We have options. Is that right? I walked around my desk, standing between them and the door. What options would those be? Legal options. He crossed his arms. Grandparent rights exist in Pennsylvania. We can petition the court for visitation. So that was it. They hadn't come to apologize or reconcile. They'd come to threaten me into compliance. Try it, I said. Please. I would love to see you explain to a judge why you abandoned your pregnant daughter 15 years ago and are only now interested in her child. That's not how it happened. That's exactly how it happened. And I have documentation. Hospital records showing I was alone when Kennedy was born. Shelter intake forms. Public housing applications. 15 years of records showing zero contact, zero support, zero interest in whether we lived or died. My mother's face went pale. You wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Tell the truth? Show the world who you really are? I opened my office door. If you contact me again, I'll file a restraining order. If you try to approach Kennedy, I'll call the police. Stay away from my daughter. Stay away from me. They didn't move immediately. We stood there in a standoff, me in my expensive suit in my beautiful office, them realizing their manipulation wouldn't work on me anymore. Finally, my father nodded once. You'll regret this. The only thing I regret is ever believing you loved me. They left. I watched them walk through the lobby, past my coworkers, out into the Philadelphia streets where I'd once been homeless because of them. Jennifer appeared in my doorway. Boss? You okay? I'm perfect. I sat down at my desk, my hands finally shaking now that they were gone. Cancel my afternoon meetings. I need some time. Of course. And Harper? Whatever that was, you handled it like the absolute queen you are. I smiled, but it felt brittle. Thanks, Jen. Alone in my office, I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a contact I'd saved years ago but never called, Paige Montgomery, family law attorney. Paige's reputation was legendary. She'd built her entire practice on protecting parents from toxic family members who used courts as weapons. If my parents were serious about pursuing legal action, I needed to be ready. I sent a text, need to schedule a consultation. Potential grandparent rights case. Are you available this week? Her response came within minutes, tomorrow at 2 p.m. My office. Bring any documentation you have regarding the family situation. I started making a list of everything I'd need: Kennedy's birth certificate, my hospital records, proof of my parents' abandonment, financial records showing they'd provided zero support. 3 weeks later, the legal papers arrived. I read through the document, rage building with each word. They claimed they'd been unjustly denied a relationship with their granddaughter. That I had unreasonably refused to allow contact. That Kennedy would benefit from knowing her grandparents. No mention of abandonment. No acknowledgement of 15 years of absence. Just carefully worded lies designed to make them look like victims. I called Paige immediately. They actually filed, I said. They're suing for visitation rights. Forward me the paperwork. We'll respond. Her voice was calm, professional. Harper, I need to ask you something. Do you want to just win this case, or do you want to destroy their credibility completely? What's the difference? Winning means the judge denies their petition. Destroying their credibility means everyone in that courtroom and everyone who hears about this case knows exactly what kind of people they are. It means public consequences for their actions. I thought about Kennedy. About the life we'd built. About every sacrifice, every struggle, every moment of desperation they'd never witnessed because they chose not to. I want exposure. I want everyone to see who they really are, then that's what we'll give them. Paige's office was in a converted brownstone in Center City, all exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. She met me at the door herself, a tall woman in her 50s with silver hair and sharp eyes. Harper Donnelly. I've read about your work in forensic accounting. Impressive, thank you. Though I wish we were meeting under different circumstances. Most of my clients do. She gestured to a conference room. Let's talk strategy. I laid out everything on the table, Kennedy's birth certificate showing I was 15 when she was born. Hospital records indicating I'd been alone with no family support. Intake forms from the youth shelter. Public housing applications documenting my address at age 16. Food stamp records. Every piece of paper that proved exactly how desperate our situation had been. Paige reviewed each document carefully, making notes. This is excellent. Thorough. You've documented their complete absence from your life. There's more. I pulled out a folder I'd compiled specifically for this. Reagan, my sister, received substantial financial support during the same period. Private school tuition, college expenses, a car, down payment on our first home. I tracked it all. You tracked your sister's financial support? I'm a forensic accountant. Following money trails is what I do. I showed her the spreadsheet I'd created. $85,000 for high school tuition. $120,000 for college. $28,000 for a car on her 16th birthday. $50,000 for a house down payment when she was 23. Paige whistled low. While you were on food stamps. Exactly, and you have documentation for all of this? Copies of checks, bank transfers, receipts. Everything. She leaned back in her chair, a slight smile on her face. Harper, I've been doing this for 25 years. Most clients come in with emotional testimony and maybe a few photos. You've come in with a prosecutor's case file. I want to win. We'll do better than win. We'll make sure your parents regret ever filing this petition. She pulled out a legal pad. Now, we also need your financial records. To demonstrate that Kennedy wants for nothing, that she's thriving in your care. I handed over another folder, my salary statements, bonus records, the deed to our house, Kennedy's private school enrollment, her academic achievements, her extracurricular activities. Paige's eyes widened as she reviewed the numbers. You're making over $500,000 a year. $540,000 last year with bonuses. Your parents have no idea, do they? None. Oh, this is going to be good. She made more notes. Here's what we're going to do. Their attorney will paint them as devoted grandparents who've been unreasonably excluded. We'll let them tell their story about how they've been trying to reconnect, how they just want to know their granddaughter. Why would we let them lie? Because then we dismantle it piece by piece. We show the judge and everyone in that courtroom the evidence of their abandonment. The contrast between how they treated you versus your sister. Your financial success despite their complete lack of support. And finally, we reveal who you really are, not some struggling single mother they can manipulate, but a highly successful executive who's built an empire without them. The reveal needs to be maximum impact, I said. I want them to feel exactly what they made me feel that night they threw me out. Powerless. Humiliated. Erased. We can do that. But Harper, you need to understand something. This will be public. Once we file our response, once we present this evidence in court, your story will be out there. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Kennedy. About how I'd shielded her from this ugliness for 14 years. I need to tell my daughter first. The whole truth, not just the edited version. That night, Kennedy and I sat in our kitchen, the beautiful, modern kitchen in the house we owned, so different from every kitchen we'd ever shared before. Mom, you look serious. What's wrong? I need to tell you something. About my parents. About where we came from. I told her everything. The pregnancy at 13. The expulsion at 14. The shelters, the public housing, the nights we'd struggled. How our grandparents had thrown me away and never looked back. Kennedy listened without interrupting, her face cycling through shock, anger, and finally something that looked like resolve. They did that to you. To us? Yes. And now they want to be in my life? They've sued for visitation rights. There's going to be a court case. She was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then, what do you need from me? I need you to understand that this is going to be public. People will know our story. Kids at school might hear about it. Are you okay with that? Mom. She grabbed my hand. You raised me by yourself from the time you were 15. You worked 3 jobs, went to school, built this entire life for us. You did that while they did nothing. If telling the truth embarrasses them, good. They should be embarrassed. You might have to testify. Tell the judge about your life, about how you feel. I want to. Her voice was firm. I want to look them in the eye and tell them exactly what I think of people who throw away their own child. Pride and pain fought in my chest. My daughter, at 14, was stronger than I'd been at her age. Stronger than I was now. Okay then. We fight. The next few weeks were preparation. Paige and I built our case like a military campaign, every piece of evidence categorized, every testimony planned, every possible angle covered. She deposed Ruth Brooks, who gave a statement about taking me in and eventually having to take me to the shelter. Ruth cried through the entire deposition. I tried so hard to keep her, Ruth told Paige. But we just didn't have the resources. It broke my heart taking her to that shelter. Still does. We gathered statements from the shelter staff who remembered me. From Gloria at the diner who'd let me bring Kennedy to work. From Professor James who'd mentored me through college. Each person painted a picture of a teenager who'd fought against impossible odds while her parents lived in comfort 40 minutes away. But the most important piece was still hidden, my current financial status. Paige wanted to save that reveal for maximum impact in the courtroom. We're not putting it in the initial filings, she explained. Let their attorney go into court confident. Let them think they're dealing with someone still struggling, someone who might cave under pressure. The shock value will be worth it. She also coordinated with the legal journal that was following the case. This is going to be precedent-setting, she told me. Might even go viral once people hear the details. Good. Let it go viral. Let everyone see who Robert and Patricia Donnelly really are. The Forbes article was scheduled to drop December 27, 2 days after Christmas, 5 days after the court hearing. Perfect timing. By the time my parents would see my face on the cover of Forbes, the case would already be decided. Have you ever had to face the people who hurt you in a courtroom or public space? Drop justice in the comments if you believe accountability matters. Because what happened next proved that sometimes the best revenge is simply the truth. December 22nd. The courthouse in downtown Philadelphia was decorated for Christmas, wreaths on the doors, garland wrapped around banisters, everything festive and warm in contrast to what was about to happen inside. Kennedy and I arrived 30 minutes early. She wore a navy dress, looking older than her 14 years, her hand steady in mine as we walked through security. "You ready?" I asked. "Born ready." Paige met us in the hallway outside the courtroom. "Your parents just arrived. They brought Reagan." "Reagan's here?" I hadn't expected that. "Sitting in the back row. She looks uncomfortable." "Good." The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, rows of benches that reminded me of church pews. About 20 people sat scattered throughout, journalists, legal students, random observers who'd heard about the case. My parents sat at the plaintiff's table with their attorney, a middle-aged man in an expensive suit who kept whispering to them. My mother was already dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. My father sat rigid, his jaw clenched. They didn't look at me when we entered. Didn't acknowledge Kennedy sitting beside me at the defense table. The bailiff called the court to order. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Catherine Morrison." Judge Morrison entered, a woman in her 60s with gray hair pulled back severely, wire-rimmed glasses, and an expression that suggested she'd seen every manipulation tactic in the book and wasn't impressed by any of them. "Be seated." She reviewed the papers in front of her. "This is a petition for grandparent visitation rights filed by Robert and Patricia Donnelly regarding their granddaughter, Kennedy Harper Donnelly. Let's begin with opening statements. Mr. Peterson, you're representing the petitioners?" My parents' attorney stood. "Yes, Your Honor. My clients are devoted grandparents who've been tragically separated from their granddaughter due to a family misunderstanding years ago. They've been attempting to reconnect with their daughter, Harper Donnelly, to no avail. They simply want the opportunity to have a relationship with their grandchild, which is their right under Pennsylvania law." He glossed over everything. Made it sound like a simple family disagreement, nothing more serious than a holiday argument that got out of hand. "Ms. Montgomery?" Judge Morrison looked at Paige. "Your Honor, what Mr. Peterson calls a misunderstanding was actually abandonment of a pregnant minor. The petitioners threw their 14-year-old daughter out of their home with no support, no resources, and no contact for 15 years. They're not devoted grandparents. They're strangers who share DNA with the child in question." "That's a mischaracterization," Mr. Peterson started, but the judge held up her hand. "You'll have your chance to present evidence." "Continue, Ms. Montgomery." "We intend to show that the petitioners forfeited any claim to grandparent rights through their deliberate, sustained abandonment of their daughter during the most vulnerable period of her life. We'll demonstrate that they provided zero support while simultaneously lavishing resources on their other daughter. And we'll prove that Kennedy is thriving under her mother's care and has no need for people who failed her most fundamental test, being there when it mattered." The judge made notes. "Mr. Peterson, call your first witness." "I call Patricia Donnelly." My mother stood, smoothed her dress, and walked to the witness stand. She placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. I wondered if the Bible knew she was lying before she even opened her mouth. "Mrs. Donnelly," Mr. Peterson began, his voice gentle and sympathetic, "can you describe your relationship with your daughter Harper when she was growing up?" "We had a wonderful relationship," my mother said, her voice trembling slightly. "I was a stay-at-home mother, devoted to my children. Harper was always a bit difficult, a bit rebellious, but I loved her deeply." Difficult. Rebellious. Already rewriting history. "What happened when you learned Harper was pregnant?" "We were devastated. shocked. She was only 13 years old. We didn't know how to handle it. She dabbed at her eyes. We suggested options that might be best for her future. You mean abortion, Paige said quietly. Ms. Montgomery, you'll have your chance for cross-examination, Judge Morrison said, but her tone wasn't entirely disapproving. We suggested several options, my mother continued, but Harper was adamant about keeping the baby. We worried she was too young, that she didn't understand the responsibility. We thought tough love might help her see reason. Tough love meaning throwing her out? Paige murmured. This time the judge gave her a warning look. Mrs. Donnelly, did you maintain contact with Harper after she left her home? We tried. My mother's voice broke convincingly. We called, we wrote letters, but Harper refused to respond. She was angry with us, and we understood. We gave her space, hoping she'd come back when she was ready. Lies. All lies. But delivered with such conviction that someone who didn't know better might believe her. And why are you seeking visitation now, after all these years? Because we're her grandparents. Kennedy deserves to know her family. We've missed so much already, her birth, her childhood, everything. We just want a chance to be part of her life now. Is that so wrong? She looked directly at the judge, tears streaming down her face, the picture of a heartbroken grandmother. No further questions, Mr. Peterson said. Paige stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Donnelly, you said you called and wrote letters to Harper after she left her home. Do you have copies of these letters? My mother blinked. It was so long ago. Phone records showing these calls you claim to have made? I don't keep phone records from 15 years ago. Any evidence at all that you attempted contact? It was 15 years ago. I can't be expected to have documentation of every, so the answer is no. You have no evidence of any attempts to contact your daughter. Paige walked closer to the witness stand. Mrs. Donnelly, where was Harper living when she was 15 years old? I'm not sure. You don't know where your 15-year-old daughter was living? She wouldn't tell us. Did you try to find out? Did you call the police to report a missing minor? My mother's face had gone pale. I didn't think to call the police. Because you knew exactly where she was, Paige said. You knew she was homeless. You knew she was in a shelter. You simply didn't care. Objection. Mr. Peterson stood. Speculation. Sustained, Judge Morrison said. Rephrase, Ms. Montgomery. Mrs. Donnelly, did you provide any financial support to Harper during her pregnancy or after Kennedy was born? We couldn't afford. Yes or no, please. No. Did you attend Kennedy's birth? We weren't informed. Yes or no? No. Did you send birthday cards? Christmas gifts? Any acknowledgement of Kennedy's existence for the first 14 years of her life? Silence. Mrs. Donnelly, the court needs an answer. No. My mother's voice was barely a whisper. Yet during this same period, you provided substantial financial support to your other daughter, Reagan. Is that correct? Reagan needed help with private school tuition totaling $85,000. College expenses exceeding $120,000. A car worth $28,000. A $50,000 down payment on a home. Paige let each number land. All while Harper was on food stamps. While Kennedy slept in a playpen in the back room of a diner. while your daughter and granddaughter struggled to survive. My mother was crying now. Real tears, not performed ones. We thought Harper made her choice. She was 14 years old. Children don't make choices. Parents do. And you chose to throw her away. Paige walked back to our table. No further questions. My father testified next, his story matching my mother's. He claimed they'd tried to reach out, that I'd refused contact, that they just wanted to be grandparents now. Paige demolished him just as efficiently, pointing out the lack of any evidence of attempted contact, the complete absence of financial support, the stark contrast with Reagan's treatment. Then came our turn. I called Harper Donnelly to the stand. I stood, feeling Kennedy squeeze my hand once before letting go. The walk to the witness stand felt longer than it was. I placed my hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. The whole truth. Nothing but the truth. Ms. Donnelly, Paige began, where were you living when Kennedy was born? A youth shelter for homeless teens. How old were you? 15. Was anyone from your family present at the birth? No. A nurse stayed with me because I was alone. After Kennedy was born, where did you go? Public housing. A studio apartment in North Philadelphia. How did you support yourself and your infant daughter? I worked night shifts at a diner. My manager let me bring Kennedy to work. She slept in a playpen in the storage room. The courtroom was silent. Even Mr. Peterson had stopped whispering to my parents. Ms. Donnelly, during the 15 years between leaving your parents' home and their recent appearance at your office, did they contact you at all? Never. Did they provide any financial support? Zero. Did they send birthday cards or Christmas gifts to Kennedy? Nothing. What would you like to say to the court about their petition for grandparent rights? I looked directly at my parents for the first time since taking the stand. They're 15 years too late. They threw me away when I needed them most. They never checked if Kennedy and I were alive, safe, fed, housed. They enjoyed their comfortable life while we struggled to survive. Now they want access to my daughter because it's convenient. Because they can play doting grandparents without doing any of the hard work. But Kennedy doesn't need grandparents who would have been ashamed of her existence. She has everything she needs: a mother who will never abandon her. Paige nodded. Your Honor, I'd like to present additional evidence. She pulled out the manila folder. The one my parents had been waiting for without knowing it. These are hospital records from Kennedy's birth, showing Harper as a 15-year-old indigent patient with no family support. She distributed copies. Shelter documentation. Public housing applications. Food stamp records. Everything showing exactly how desperate their situation was while the petitioners lived in comfort. My father's hands started shaking as he read. This, Paige continued, holding up another document, is a record of financial support provided to Reagan Donnelly during the same period. The contrast is damning. She let that settle. Then delivered the final blow. And these are Harper Donnelly's financial records for the past 5 years. She distributed copies to the judge and Mr. Peterson. I watched my parents' faces as their attorney showed them the numbers. My salary, $540,000 annually. My property value, $680,000, owned outright. Kennedy's private school, $35,000 yearly tuition. My investment portfolio, $1.2 million. My father's face went from pale to gray. My mother's tissue stopped moving entirely, Your Honor, Page said. Ms. Donnelly is now a partner at Morrison & Klein, one of Philadelphia's most prestigious accounting firms. She specializes in forensic accounting, finding hidden assets, following money trails that others miss. She's been nominated for Forbes 40 Under 40. She owns her home. Kennedy attends one of the best private schools in Pennsylvania. They want for absolutely nothing. Judge Morrison looked at my parents over her glasses. So let me understand this correctly. You abandoned your teenage daughter and infant grandchild. Provided zero support for 15 years. Then, after Ms. Donnelly built a successful life without you, you decided you wanted visitation rights? We didn't know she was doing well, my father started, because you never asked, the judge said sharply. You never tried to find out. Mr. and Mrs. Donnelly, I've been a family court judge for 23 years. I've seen many difficult cases. But this? She gestured at the papers in front of her. This is one of the clearest examples of parental abandonment I've encountered. Your Honor, everyone deserves a second chance. Mr. Peterson tried. A second chance requires a first attempt, Judge Morrison cut him off. These people didn't try. They simply gave up on their child when she needed them most. She looked at Kennedy. Young lady, do you want to say anything? Kennedy stood, her voice clear and strong. They didn't want us when I was a baby. When my mom was struggling to feed us. When we lived in a place with roaches and thin walls. They only want us now that we're successful, now that knowing us won't embarrass them. But my mom raised me by herself from the time she was 15 years old. She worked 3 jobs, went to school, built an entire life for us without their help. I don't need grandparents who would have been ashamed of me. I have everything I need, a mother who chose me every single day. The judge nodded slowly. Petition for grandparent visitation is denied. Mr. and Mrs. Donnelly, you forfeited any rights to this child 15 years ago when you threw your daughter out like garbage. You don't get to skip the hard parts and show up for the victory lap. This case is closed. The gavel came down with the same finality as the door that had locked behind me all those years ago. In the hallway, my mother tried one final time. Harper, please. We're so sorry. We made a terrible mistake. You made a choice, I said. Now live with it. We want to be in your lives. You want the Instagram perfect grandmother relationship without earning it. You want to erase 15 years of absence with a few tears and sorry. It doesn't work that way. Kennedy took my hand. You didn't want us? Fine. We didn't need you anyway. My mom is the strongest person I know. She gave up everything for me, worked herself to exhaustion, and never once made me feel like a mistake. You can't compete with that. We walked away. This time, I didn't look back. The story went viral within 24 hours. Not because I wanted it to, but because Page had submitted the case to a legal journal as an example of abandonment law. A journalist picked it up. Teen mom abandoned by parents becomes successful accountant, denies grandparents access 15 years later. The comments were overwhelmingly supportive. Thousands of people shared their own stories of family rejection. My professional network, people who'd worked with me for years, reached out with messages of support. But the most meaningful response came from David Brooks. He found me through the news articles, sent a message through LinkedIn. Harper, I've thought about you and Kennedy every day for 15 years. I'm so sorry I couldn't do more. I'm married now, 2 kids, working as a construction manager. But I never forgot you. I'm so proud of who you became. We met for coffee. This boy who'd been with me that terrified night, now a man with gentle eyes and work-worn hands. His wife knew about me, about Kennedy, and sent her love. It was closure I hadn't known I needed. 3 weeks after the court case, Reagan appeared at my office. She looked different. Older, worn down in a way that suggested life hadn't been kind. "I'm sorry," she said immediately when I agreed to see her. "For everything. For not standing up for you. For filming you being thrown out. For being glad you were gone because it meant I got all their attention." "Why now?" "Because I watched what they did to you, and then they did a smaller version to me. When I got divorced last year, suddenly I wasn't perfect anymore. They told me I should have tried harder, that I'd embarrassed them." She laughed bitterly. "I realized their love was always conditional. You just found out sooner than I did." We talked for 2 hours. I didn't forgive her, not entirely, not yet, but I understood. She'd been 16, manipulated by parents who pitted us against each other. Today, Kennedy is 14 and thriving. She wants to be a lawyer, to help kids who don't have anyone fighting for them. My practice has expanded. I'm one of the most sought-after forensic accountants in the country, specializing in cases involving hidden assets and helping abandoned parents find money owed to them. My parents tried reaching out twice more. Both times, I returned their letters unopened. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ashes. But here's what I learned: you can't make someone value you. You can't force family to behave like family. All you can do is build your own life so successfully that their rejection becomes irrelevant. Kennedy doesn't need grandparents who would have been ashamed of her. She has my fierce love, David's respectful distance, Ruth's occasional care packages, and a mother who will never let her feel disposable. The revenge wasn't the courtroom victory. It was every day I woke up and chose to be present, to fight, to build something they said I'd never have. It was Kennedy's confidence, her security, her absolute certainty that she is wanted. They wanted to be part of our story after we'd written all the hard chapters ourselves. But our story doesn't need their names in it. It never did. If you're watching this because you've been thrown away by people who should have protected you, know this: their rejection says everything about them and nothing about your worth. Build anyway. Love anyway. Succeed anyway. Not for revenge, though that's satisfying. But because you deserve the life they said you'd never have. Your value doesn't require their acknowledgement. Your success doesn't need their permission. And your family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by who stays, who fights, who shows up when it matters. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear that abandoned doesn't mean unworthy. Drop a comment about your own journey from invisible to invincible. Tell me where you're watching from and what this story meant to you. I read every single comment, and your stories keep me going. Subscribe for more stories about choosing yourself, setting boundaries, and building the life you deserve despite the people who said you couldn't. Remember, the best revenge is a life so extraordinary they can't believe they missed it. Thank you for listening to my story. Because you matter, even if they couldn't see it.